podcast, where we talk operator to operator about how businesses actually execute, what really happens between the sale and the result. This episode is sponsored by Inevitable Flow. Inevitable Flow helps B2B founders and executive teams in high trust industries fix their pipeline, automate their process, and build predictable revenue engines. So growth doesn't depend on referrals, luck, or the founder doing everything. If you want a smarter go-to-market system without adding headcount, the link is in the description of the show. Today, I'm joined by Pamela Mann. Pamela and her husband Mike run a rare little ecosystem out of Ohio. They run a business advisory firm, a commercial mortgage brokerage, and an evergreen private equity fund called Capstack Ventures, a roughly 145 million offering that invests across real estate, infrastructure, and operating companies. Most people spend a career on one side of a deal. Pamela's built a seat on basically all of them. Pamela, welcome to the Inevitable Cast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. You and Mike don't just run one company, you run the three that clearly feed each other. So take me back to the start. What was the first one, and how did the other two get pulled into orbit around it?
Well, I would consider myself as a serial entrepreneur. Mike and I have owned multiple companies, throughout our lives. And, a few years ago, we started a business brokerage called Titan Business Advisors. And working in the business brokerage primarily with small to mid sized businesses with a focus on mergers and acquisitions, we found that a lot of the clients that we had, had additional needs. So those additional needs led us to consulting, and also we saw one of their needs was that they needed capital, right? So that led us to starting the commercial mortgage company, which is Builder Financial Resources. And then at Builder Financial Resources, we work primarily with builders and developers on helping secure financing for their commercial real estate projects. Now, on these commercial loans, most of the time the maximum loan to value is 70% on a large project. So that means these developers have to come up with 30% themselves. So if you're talking a multi-million dollar project, that can be a lot of money. And we found that in most cases, these developers still needed to raise capital because they didn't have the entire 30%. So instead of referring that business out to other family funds, we decided to start our own private equity fund. And that led us to Capstack Ventures, which you said is an evergreen private equity fund with total offering of 145 million.
So this is so interesting because the businesses they didn't come from a master plan. No, they came from you keep bumping into the next gap and deciding to own it.
Yes.
That's amazing. And you're relocating Titan from California to Ohio. We talked briefly about it. That's not a small move for an advisory firm. That's, your relationships, your deal flow, your reputation, all geographically anchored. My question to you is like, what made Ohio the right base for the whole ecosystem?
Well, Mike and I are both originally from the Midwest, and we had lived in California for 8 years, and we had decided to move back to Ohio. Ohio has a lot of opportunity. The cost of living is amazing in the Midwest, very affordable. A lot of businesses are moving to Ohio. We're seeing a lot in tech coming here, manufacturing, and we felt like Columbus would be a good hub for all of our businesses to headquarter them. And that's where we came up with that reasoning.
That's a real operator decision, and I respect that. Most people optimize for where the clients are, but you optimize for where the life and the platform work best for you.
Well,
So,
and we work nationwide. So, a lot of the projects that we have are, in other states. So the Midwest makes it easy to hop on a plane and, get to where the majority of our clients are operating out of. When we're on the West Coast, with the time zone difference, that right there takes up half of your day.
yeah. So let's make the flywheel concrete for the audience, for people that are listening, right? The advisory, mortgage brokerage, and a evergreen fund. So walk me through how a single relationship can touch all three, because I suspect that's the whole point.
Right. Well, as we talked about, Titan, is also a business brokerage. So with that, one of the things that we have always focused on is mergers and acquisitions. So helping businesses grow through, possibly strategic acquisitions, maybe purchasing a competitor or a supplier. That's one of the fastest ways to gain market share rather than growing organically. And when they're doing that, they're doing these mergers and acquisitions. They're going to need capital. So that's going to lead to a commercial loan. It's going to lead to a capital raise. So as I mentioned, it all works hand in hand.
You're not three vendors to a client. You are the same trusted table they keep coming back to at different stages for different needs, which, if they go elsewhere, they may not get the same level of result.
Right. I guess you could say it's a platform or an ecosystem.
So let's talk about Capstack for a little bit. Because Capstack, as you said, is an evergreen fund. So there is no fixed term. You're not forced to sell in year seven to return capital. My question to you is, why did you structure it that way instead of the traditional 7 to 10 year vehicle everyone else runs?
I think, we decided to structure it that way just to give more options, to have more flexibility. Also, there's no blind investing. The investors can choose what they're investing in. So it's not just things that we choose for them to invest in. They get to look at all the offerings and pick what they would like to invest in.
Let's talk about what would they like to invest in, because from what I understood, you invest across three lanes: real estate, infrastructure, and this business innovation vertical, where you're backing operating companies. Those are really different animals. So what ties them together in how you underwrite them?
Well, I mean, we have an underwriting process that we take all of our opportunities through, to basically vet them, to determine if this is a viable investment to offer. So there's a lot of due diligence that is done behind the scenes, to ensure that it is a good investment. And when you were talking about the different sectors that we focus on, the real estate, infrastructure, and business innovation can be a variety of things. It could be a tech company, it could be a restaurant, that's maybe growing, and they've decided to franchise and they need to raise capital so that they can franchise. It could be a company that's manufacturing a product and they just received some huge order from a big box store and they don't have the capital to fill their order. So they need to raise capital to fill their order. So, I guess with our fund, it's very exciting because it's not the same thing day in and day out. It's something different all the time. And all of the businesses that we're involved in, they were founded with the belief of helping people. That's what Mike and I like to do. We like to help people, achieve their goals, realize their dreams. And if we can be a part of that and help them do that, that's a good day.
Oh my God, I love that.
Well, isn't
Let's
that what life's about? You're supposed to help other people.
Yes, exactly. My life's purpose is to help us progress in harmony with nature. And I believe that we are nature as well. And how we treat each other, how we help each other is how
It
we
all
treat,
comes back to you.
yeah, right? And it goes back to you.
Yes,
So, 100% aligned on that mission with you.
yes, yes. Well,
Um,
and some people, I mean, they might have a great idea, but they just don't have the money to execute it and bring it forward. So, that's when, we like to get behind people that we believe in, products that we believe in, and help them get to the next level.
Yeah, let's talk about this because I think it's very important, and there is a very, like you said, there is due diligence done, which is a very big step of this.
Mhm.
When you take a position in, or when you are considering taking a position in an operating company, what's the first thing you look at to decide whether you can actually scale versus whether it's just like a good story or a good idea?
Well, I mean, one of the first things, we're going to ask for is a pitch deck, an executive summary, pro forma, and a personal financial statement. Those are some of the initial documents that we would review to determine whether or not this is something that, we want to continue to investigate and see if it's something worthwhile for our fund.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that makes total sense because being on the fund, you sit on the capital side, but but also when you think about it, you still are betting that the companies you're investing in, they have to go win more customers, win more contracts so they can grow and justify your investment. From where you sit, what's the most common place that these companies are actually stuck? Is it like the product, the team, or is it like the go-to-market strategy to go to this next level that they're aiming for?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it just depends on, the operator. They're all at different stages. So, I mean, the bottom line is they all need to raise capital for some reason. And, one of the things that we want to know is what are your sources and uses? This money that you're requesting, what are you going to use it for? And, we want to know how much have you raised so far? What did you use that for? So, all of those things also go into determining, companies that we're working with.
Yeah, totally. Makes total sense too. I myself have worked on a private equity fund before. So I was doing a lot of due diligence in projects, agricultural projects in North, Central, and South America and Africa. And what you just said is definitely a baseline that we hold everyone also accountable for that. Question to you, Pamela. When you've got a portfolio company that's great at what it does, but consistently can't generate demand, how do you and Mike think about fixing that? Do you push operators? Do you bring in help? Or what do you do?
I mean, honestly, with a company like that, you're going to take a look at their leadership team and, do they have the right people in charge, basically. Um, a lot of times I have seen, where a business, they're not good at everything, right? No one is good at everything. So maybe the business, they have, a great product, that they've developed, a great idea, but they can't do it all themselves. So maybe, they need to bring in someone on a fractional basis to help them with their sales, to develop like a repeatable sales process that they could do to help generate more revenue. That's something that could be done.
Yeah, definitely. You have a very interesting perspective on all of this, and I wanna have your read on it because you've been on every side of a deal as an advisor, as a lender, now as a principal. So, what does being the one writing the check teach you that all those years of advising never did?
What does the one writing the check teach us that all those other years didn't? Okay, that's a good question. Well, when you're writing the check, you have a big responsibility. So you have to make sure that, the company that you're investing in and representing for your fund, that, it's a viable deal. Because, at the end of the day, you have investors that, are going to invest in that business. So you have to make sure that, it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is a hard-earned lesson. And the way I see it is advising, you're carrying the analysis, right? But when you invest on something, you are also responsible for the outcome.
Right. Well, and like I know, one thing I say is, would I want my parents to put their money into this? So when you look at it that way, it really, really makes you think, right? Or would I put my own money into this? I think those are important questions to ask.
Oh yeah, most
And
definitely.
also, you have to feel that you trust the business owner. You really have to do a thorough background check and trust what they're offering, trust their product. I think all of that comes into play as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. As we approach the end of this episode, I have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
Uh, um, you get, a front row seat to a lot of founders and operators through the fund and the advisory, right? You get to see their business, you get to see their struggles, you get to see their challenge, their winnings, their strategies. So for the companies out there, for the founders, the operators out there that are building companies, you would actually want to back or underwrite. What's the single biggest mistake you watch them make when they try to grow?
That is a good question. I would say a mistake I have seen a lot is companies do not follow their business plan.
Mhm.
So they make that business plan when they start their company, they put it away and they never look at it again. Why did you make the business plan? You made it for a reason. So I do think, following your business plan is important.
Plain and simple.
Yes.
Follow the plane. Follow the
Yes.
plan. Yeah, amazing. I have one question for you last, okay?
Okay.
And you can sit with it and think it through. If you could wave a magic wand and remove one thing that is currently holding Capstack back from accelerating, you can think about a bottleneck, a structural constraint, a friction point. What would you remove and why?
Um, I don't. There's no bottlenecks. I don't think there's really anything holding us back. I just think, we are a newer fund, so the biggest thing is just creating brand awareness, just getting our name out there more. That's what we're working on. But it just takes time. I'm not really concerned about it. I'm sure everything will work out just fine.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question to you.
Yeah.
For the audience and the founders and the executives out there that are listening to this conversation and want to get in touch, how will they get in touch? How can they get in touch with you and the fund?
Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn, or you can send us a message at info@capstackventures.com. You can go to our website. There's forms on there that you can submit an opportunity, or request a meeting. It's very easy.
Awesome. Pamela, this was great. Most people, they spend a whole career learning one side of a deal, but you and Mike built a table where you sit on all of them at once, and people feel like a trust environment, and you can feel how much, sharper that makes the way you back companies. As always, this podcast is sponsored by Inevitable Flow. If you want to strengthen your commercial engine and build predictable revenue, the link is in the description of the show. Pamela, thank you for coming to the Inevitable Cast.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
We stop the